Hi, so this video is going to show you how to create your text portrait poster. What you're going to need is a face, zoomed in face, high resolution, and facing the camera, and then you're going to need a quote that goes along with the face. So the very first thing we do is we're going to open up the face that we picked. We're going to use Keanu Reeves. And what we're going to do is we're going to separate the face from the background. So you can unlock your background. Mine's unlocked already, but if yours isn't locked or is locked, you just click on the lock there. And if you want to do it simply, you can just use an eraser tool and you can just rub it out. You want to make sure that your brush is not real fuzzy. It could be a little bit of fuzziness to it, but basically you can get rid of the background like this. There's also a way that you can use this quick selection tool. You can try using that, and you can select the background. So, and then eventually, after you select your background, looks like it caught all of it up there and most of it here. And using the quick selection tool, it should be able to identify the background from the foreground pretty easily. And then you can go to Refine Edge, and here it shows you sort of before and after. Now the one problem that I did is I forgot to select, you can see it's removing everything but the background. What I did not do, and I should have before, I'm going to X this out, is I actually want to select, instead of having marching ants around the background, I want the marching ants around his face. So I'm going to go to Select Inverse, so it selects the opposite. So instead of having the donut, you have the donut hole, that kind of thing. And now I'm going to go to Refine Edge. Much better. So you can see this is sort of like my working area. Gray will sort of lightly kind of get rid of it. If I use the black, it's absolutely going to get rid of it. So you can like see some spots that, like right here, it looks like kind of a mess right here. So you can go over this, and it's just using the mask tool. And you can see what you're going to have at the end on this side. And don't worry too much about this edge here because you can fix this up later. You can even just do the whole thing with the eraser tool. So now we ended up getting rid of the background. What we're also going to do is we are going to get rid of the color. So we're going to use Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and bring the saturation all the way down. Okay, so this one's ready to move on to a background. So we're going to open up a new image. This image we're going to make 12 inches wide, 16 inches tall. So this one's going to be kind of big. We're going to have the DPI, or the resolution, 300 dots per inch. Background white, it's fine. We're just going to make the background black though. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Go. A little bit more. That's good. And we're going to take this background. We're going to make this black. So we use the paint bucket is on black already, just like that. We are going to take his picture now and we are going to drag this up on the new project and bring it down. And don't worry if the picture seems really small. You'll be able to determine whether it's too small when you start making it larger. So holding down the Shift button, it'll guarantee that it'll hold the proportion. You don't want to stretch the face out. The face is a little crooked. You can straighten it out. You want it to kind of be pretty symmetrical. All right, we can find the center in a little while. And you also want to make sure it's zoomed in so all that background kind of just goes away. So a good rule of thumb is to take the hairline, and that should be at the top of the page, and the chin should be hitting the bottom. And that's a pretty good size, okay? Because our words are only going to be able to go on his skin. They won't be able to show up on his hair, but that's something to consider later. All right, so that's pretty good. We can make some more adjustments later on. What we're also going to do is we're going to increase the contrast of this picture. So to do that, we're going to go back to Image, Adjustments, and it's called Levels. The shortcut's Command L or Control L if you're using a Chromebook. So the idea is we're going to make the shadows black. So we're going to take this black square right here, right under that guide, and we're going to drag it until the shadows are black. So depending on your picture, the adjustments might be pretty strong, or they might not need much adjustments at all. Now I'm going to take the white, and I'm going to bring this white square towards the middle until the highlights are light enough. So you want a little bit of white. You know, I tend to look at the whites of the eyes. You know, they're really nice and white. You don't want to overexpose it. You just want to get some highlights in there. So I'm pretty happy with that. If you go to preview, you can see what it was. Click it, bring it back. You can see it looks good. And it also allows you to, I don't know, it makes the background look like it's part of the picture a little bit more. By having those shadows black, it makes it look like this picture was taken with a black background because it's nice and contrasty. So at this point, I'm going to grab this eraser tool and I'm going to smooth out the edges. Just going to get rid of some of those spots that have some highlights that don't really make any sense. Just kind of blend the side of the head with the background a bit. All right. That's good. Okay, so the next step is to make a rectangle on one side of the face. Now this is the rectangle that is going to have the words. What I tend to do is I tell kids to look at if there's a lighter side of the face, or there's a side of the face that has a little bit more light area. So you can see the hair kind of falls on the right side here, so we're going to go with the left. If you don't have one, put a ruler in place. So go to File, Rulers, and then we're going to make sure that your ruler is set to inches, and we are going to take a guide from the ruler, go on top of the ruler and drag a line until it hits the 6, the line next to the 6 on top. That is the center of your picture. You know, and you could, if you want to center your picture a little bit more, if you need to make the face bigger or maybe smaller, you can take the opportunity, now that you have like a guideline, you can fix this up. Just make sure you're hitting that shift button when you're making this larger and smaller. And the nose, straighten it out a little bit. All right, pretty happy with that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so once you have it in place, we have this guideline. This is going to help you to make a rectangle on the left side or the right side. So it's up to you. Make a new layer, drag using the Marquee tool, the rectangular marquee, drag a rectangle on it and dump the color black here. So make sure that you have another separate layer for this. Okay, I am going to get rid of the selection by hitting Control D. I am going to get rid of the guide. I don't think I need the guide anymore. So you can get rid of the guide by going to View and Clear Guides. Okay. So it's at this point you're going to put the words on this side of the face. So I have a quote already in place. Now some of you guys, you can copy this. You can actually right click and copy and then paste it on here, but I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to bring this over here and I'm going to situate myself a bit here. I'm going to move this window over a little bit smaller. So in other words, I want to be able to see both things here. Okay. So now I'm going to type my text in. I just made the writing a little smaller so I can see it. So now you are going to get yourself set up here. First of all, go to the type tool. When you get to the type tool, look around for a font that might work out well. I'm going with Titan 1. Nice and thick, very bold, and we're going to start with that. I can always change it. Regular. Make the size about 300 pixels. You can always make it bigger, smaller, depending. So somewhere between 300 and 500 would be good. So it might not allow you to drag it all the way up like that, but you can highlight the number and put the number in. So we'll go with 300. Make the color white up here. And also be aware of the alignment. So I want my words to line up to the right, right along the middle of my picture. So I'm going to change the alignment to right. If my rectangle was on this side, let's say, if my rectangle was on this side, then my alignment would be on the left. But my alignment's on the right, so that's where it's going to go. So once I'm ready to go with my font, my alignment, color black, size 300, it's now ready to start typing. So I'm going to click somewhere on top until I get the blinking cursor, or just a cursor, and I'm going to start writing a couple of lines of words. Make sure you have all caps locked, and start typing. And I'm putting in one word on each line. Again, that can change later. So the simple act. So you can go with 2, 3, 4 lines of text just to kind of get started. So I'm going to slide it over right along the edge there. And there's a couple of things that I can do to change it. I could do it now, I can do it later. So you just want to slide it over. One thing you can do, and you can do this at any time, is you want to get to the character button, character window. So you click over here. You can also go to window, and you can go to character to get it. To put it back, you just hit the CHA again, and it goes away. So over here you have your font. You can pick the font here. You can go to the size here. I'm going to talk about your leading. Your leading or leading, depending, adjusts the lines of text. So if you move them, you can see it just kind of jumped. So because I have it set to 300, you could see it's way beyond it. So I'm going to start off with 300 pixels because my letters are 300 pixels. And I'm going to highlight the number, and I'm going to use the arrows on my keyboard. I'm going to go with the arrow down because I want it to be a little closer together. So you want them nice and tight because, again, this is where inside all this white, that's where your the face is going to go. So you want to make sure it's nice and close together so we see a lot of that face there. Okay. If you go now over here, and this is going to happen later where you can actually stretch out the text, but you can do lines of text. You can do its own lines of text individually. Okay, so we are going to keep typing. I'm going to type the rest of this now. Avoid having a space at the end of each word and at the beginning of each word, or at the beginning or the end of each line. You want to keep them, you don't want spaces in between or at the beginning or the end. Okay, period, and then I'm actually going to use his name. I gotta spell it right. Okay, so you can see I can definitely move these letters a little bit. I can change the size. So I'm going to hit the character button. It's at this point, oh, I have an extra one here. It's at this point that I could, let me throw this guy away, use the move tool, go on the text, and I can stretch this text out. I can stretch it out this way, I can stretch it out this way. But what we have to do is we have to get this to fit inside of his face. So that's the next thing we're going to do. I'm going to take layer 1. I'm going to lower the opacity so I can see what I'm doing. So you can see the word attention is going to extend beyond the space that will allow it to see. So I'm going to have to make some changes there. I am happy with the way each line is, and I'm happy with the way they are taking up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines of text, and I think that looks pretty good. If I want to change the type of text, I can do that. If I wanted to change, make it into bold or something, if I wanted to change the space in between, but I'm very happy with the way this looks. You want to make sure that there's a lot of letters in there. You want to make sure that's taking up a lot of space. So I'm going to go back to character now, and I'm going to take each line of text separate. This is pretty cool. You highlight this, so it's highlighting the word the, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to drag where the arrow to the left and right is, and I want this word to come out that far. Okay, then I'm going to take simple and I'm going to stretch it this far. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of lining it up so it's along the edge of the face, so it kind of conforms. So it actually will kind of look like his face, almost like he's wearing a mask of letters. So while the letters are getting smushed or they're spreading out, they still look pretty good because they're the same height and it's the same style font. So I don't recommend switching over to a different font. I recommend sticking to the same font. Now, if you find that this might look silly, you could combine words together, and you can do this at any time. So, for example, if I want to realign this text here, I could put can and take in one line. Okay, so then I could just keep going with this. Okay, so once you have your words all set up on there, really conforming with the edge of the person's face, get rid of this character now. We're going to bring the opacity back up on layer 1, back to normal where it was. And so now we are going to create the illusion that this is going to be pieces that are made out of his face. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to cut holes out of the black with these, in the shape of these letters. So we are going to get marching ants all around these letters. Now there's actually a fast way to do this. If you put your cursor on top of this thumbnail here, and you hold the control button and you click, do you see it's selected everything in that layer? Okay, I'm going to do that one more time. So you put your cursor and you have this little gloved hand on top, and you hold down the control button and you click. It selects all of the text. You can do this the way that we did previously, where we can use the magic wand tool, and we can uncheck contiguous, which means connected, and we can select just the T, and it selects all of the letters. I'm going to make this layer invisible so you can see what the holes look like. I'm just throwing this out. So then I go to my layer 1 and I hit delete. So you can see that now it's his face. All right. So if you feel that there's some spots missing, or you're not really happy with the way it looks and you want to make some changes, you'd have to go back in your history and you'd have to go back a bit. But if you're happy with this, this is great. We're going to move on to the next step. Now, you might have some areas that are hard to read. Mine's pretty good. I can actually read all of these words, even if there's some areas that are too dark. Now, you could do this process, and I'm just going to make this invisible for a second. There's a process, it's called the dodge tool, and the shortcut's the letter O. And the dodge tool, what it'll do is it'll give you a space and you can lighten up an area. So it's just like using a brush. So we set the size, and I'm just going to do this as a demonstration. Let's say I want to lighten up the beard a bit. I can make the size, you know, pretty large. I'm going to kick the exposure up to 100%. So what it's going to do is it's going to make lighter either shadows, midtones, or highlights. So I'm going to start with shadows, and I'm just going to go over this part right here. So if you click on it a little bit, oh, you got to be on the right layer. If you click on your background, you could see that it lightened up an area. And it's pretty noticeable, and it's kind of sort of messy. We may need to use a less hard brush, and we can try it again. Undo and undo. So you have to be very sort of careful with it, but you can see as you click, you can lighten up some areas. Now, why is this useful? Because if you have, oops, you can see I did that from before. Go back a bit. Okay, so let's get this back a little bit more. Okay. So if I put this back and I use the dodge tool, maybe on where the mustache is. Again, make sure you're on the correct layer. I keep doing a bad thing. Make sure you're on the background, meaning the picture. And you can see how it'll lighten up the mustache a little bit. You don't want to go too crazy because you don't want it to look like the mustache is really gray on this side. So you can do that to shadows. You can try midtones and do the same thing, but but just by doing it subtly, it won't be noticeable. Okay, you can see it's pretty subtle, and then here it's very subtle. So that, I would say, is a done deal. Now there's one very last thing we're going to do once we're happy with the way this looks. We're going to flatten the image, so it's one layer. We are going to put a border around this, so we're going to need a new image, and this time we're going to make it an inch taller and an inch wider. So instead of 12 by 16, it's going to be 13 by 17, 300 dpi, same dots per inch. We're going to put black in here, and we are going to take this and we're going to bring it over here. So if it's locked and you have it flattened and everything, you can go to select all, copy, and then we're going to paste it. Okay. So it looks exactly the same, but you see there's a bit of a little line around it. So what I would like to do is put a little bit of a glow around the outside, and it's going to make it look very, very finished. So we're going to go to Layer, Layer Style, and we're going to pick Outer Glow. So here we are in Outer Glow. The only thing you're going to change is the size and the spread. We're also going to make sure, I think black, using white would be a good color. So instead of having it set to like a peachy color, a creamy color, we're going to have it totally white. And we're going to move the size up. Now it gets a little tricky, especially when there's other programs open. But you want to put a little bit of size in there and a little bit of spread in there. Oh, that might be a little too big. Actually, that doesn't look bad at all. Okay. So it just puts a little bit of like a glow around the outside. You don't want this glow to be too big. All right. I'm going to say okay to it because I think I'm pretty happy with it. If it's too much, like if you want to make any changes, you just click on the EFF, which is the effects, and go back to Outer Glow, and I think it's just a little too big. I'm going to bring the size down. So again, this gets a little stuck. Okay, once you're happy with it, whoops. Then that is a done deal. Then you're going to be saving this, flatten it, and we'll save this, and this is a done deal. Okay, you want to be able to read the words. The quote should have something to do with the person's face, and that's it. I hope you enjoy this project. and you know how to get in touch with me if you have any questions.